since April 2018. Under Vicky's leadership, GB Snowsport launched its new strategy, which sets out a bold and aspirational vision for the UK to become one of the top 5 Olympic ski and snowboarding nations by 2030. For this vision to be achieved, as you are undoubtedly aware, we need strong sporting pathways. Through Vicky's support, a funding partnership between Snowsport Scotland and GB Snowsport started 12 months ago and has allowed us to fund additional coaches to support Scottish athletes. Further, through the British Ski and Snowboard National Foundation, additional funding has been provided to support performance camps and participation programs. Yes, lots more needs to be done to achieve the aspirational vision set by GB Snowsport. However, during my time working with Vicky, the wider GBS board and engagement with staff, I support the direction of travel taken and I'm excited by what can be achieved at Beijing in 2022. Tonight's presentation will provide a highlights reel on the 2019-20 GBS season just gone and also some insights into the year ahead. The plan itself is for Vicky to speak for 20 to 30 minutes and then for a Q&A session to follow. Just to allow us to control questions throughout, I'd encourage you to post questions through the chat line. Please note you'll need to activate that. So if you hover at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat function. If you click on the chat function, the group chat line will come up and you can obviously type messages throughout Vicky's presentation. Vicky doesn't mind being interrupted as questions come up throughout her presentation, but please push them through the chat so we can control them at the end. So without further ado, I'd just like to welcome Vicky to Scotland and to our AGM and pass the floor to you. Thank you, Vicky.
Thanks, Trafford, and it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for actually inviting me. You know, time sort of races by, doesn't it? And you think, oh, but what I would say is Scotland is clearly critical for our pathways, and I have to say Trafford has been a fantastic individual from the home nation's perspective to work with, and it's, well, you know, we pushed hard to have him on the board, and it's been great having him there. So GB Snowsport, yes, what a journey in the last couple of years. I came in, as Trafford said, in the April of 2018 after they'd been to Pyeongchang, and the first thing that sort of struck me was we really needed to rebrand this organisation and get it sort of all the disciplines were sitting in different silos, and try and create this sense of one family that could be aligned to this amazing, some may say rather ambitious vision to become a top 5 nation by 2030. And we succeeded, with the help of UK Sport, we succeeded in dropping the ring fencing around the funding, which enabled us to actually create more of an umbrella for what then, with the rebrand, became GB Snowsport. And in order to create this success, I'd learnt quite a lot about, creating a movement at scale and creating success through my remit as the chief exec of the Invictus Games and the learnings through that. And first and foremost, we set about putting in a foundation with what I call the 6 pillars of success. And the very first pillar is athlete first, because you have to put them right front and center of what it is that you're actually doing. So with this athlete first approach, we needed to really start considering, you know, what does the athlete need when they're coming up through the pipeline? What do they need when they hit the elite level? And what do they need when they're going to, you know, be coming out the other side? Because unless you're looking at what's going to happen when they come out the other side, they can become distracted and they can lose confidence and you can lose them early. So putting the athletes right front and center of everything they were doing at the core and heart of GB Snowsport was really pivotal. And then secondly, the second pillar was all about creating, you know, an environment for performance. So a winning performance. And what we needed to do is look at, you know, what sort of building blocks did we need to create this winning performance so that we could effectively take these athletes and ensure that they were given the opportunity to perform to the best of their ability on a world-class stage. So that involved looking at the coaching structure, looking at the coaches themselves who we employed. You'd have seen we employed, Bertrand, who's one of the best in the world as a moguls coach. We employed Guillaume, who's one of the best in the world at cross-border snowboarding, and so on. And that really helped our platform, along with investing in world-class facilities. So ensuring that we had an airbag that we could place in the venue, So we had a good place for our athletes to train. And that in itself, what we started to see was, because we created this sort of world-class structure, is that we gained credibility, and we started being approached by British athletes who had actually gone over to go and compete for France, or gone over and gone to compete for America, but had British heritage. So the first to come across was Charlotte Banks, who was 4th in the world, and she'd been representing France for 9 years, despite the fact she had British parents, both mum and dad from Milton Keynes area. And then the next individual to follow quite in close sort of pursuit was Gus Kenworthy. His mum was actually from Camden. His dad was from the States, but he was an American silver Olympian. And everybody said, there's no way, why would he want to come and compete for GB? When actually, the reality is he'd started to see that we were building these world-class facilities, and he'd heard that we were treating the athletes well. And so he approached us, which was great. And then again, closely followed by a youngster called Matteo, who's only 15, but his mum was from Dorset, his dad was from France, and they'd seen Bertrand was teaching and how this mogul squad that we developed was excelling. And so he also jumped from the French and joined us. So, it proved that actually we could build this credible base that these athletes could see was happening. Then hopefully, we would start to get transfers such as that. But the reason that we're good with the transfers is because these types of individuals are really good at inspiring our youngsters, because if you can't see it, you can't be it. So having them there, being successful for Britain is always helpful when you're looking at the pathway, because ideally we want to grow our own. And then the next pillar was all about the culture. So one of the other remits that I did, aside from the rebranding, was to merge with the Paris Snowsports. Obviously with a background in the Invictus Games, and taking these wounded, injured and sick sort of men and women from the battlefield onto the sports field, and seeing what they could actually achieve. I had a very good friend, Dave Henson, who was blown up in Afghanistan in 2011, and by 2014, he competed in the Invictus Games in the 200-meter sprint, and then he went on to Rio to actually get the bronze medal in the 200-meter sprint with his running blade. So it just showed actually, the skill and the determination of some of these individuals. And I knew that some of these guys were into snow sport. I also knew that there was, we'd had a great success at the previous Paralympics in Pyeongchang. So it was very attractive to see how we could bring the para side into the fold. And so we did, and we merged with the Paris Snowsports. So the cultural piece was very much looking at how could we maintain the personalities of the different disciplines, because, I've got 3 children, all the same name, but they've all got their own personalities. And so maintain the ability to have the personalities, but create this sense of family, and with one, all aligned to this one mission. So we merged with the Paris Snowsports, and and the focus was on the culture and ensuring that it was an inclusive and diverse culture, both up and down and throughout the organisation. And with that, we started training some of our athletes in doing our altitude training in the vineyard, which worked really, really well, having our Paranordic athletes and our Nordic athletes doing an altitude training camp, and it was fantastic to see, and they learned a lot from each other. And then the next pillar was all about technology. So pillar 4, very much about technology and innovation. And of course, we've got Dan Hunt, the performance director that had come from cycling, who'd learned so much about marginal gains, and the importance and relevance of that. And we needed to really start looking in this area. So we brought across Professor Philip Bond, who is, was an absolute dynamo, and he's super well connected. And we really started focusing in on aerodynamics, waxes, helmets, and actually the equipment itself. And closely followed by a close friend of mine, a guy called Tom Stallard, who's the chief engineer from McLaren, and closely followed by the chap I mentioned, Dave Henson, who's a PhD grad in working in Imperial College in sort of looking at concussion and looking at preventative forms of preventing injuries, such as Katie Ormrod, through looking at, the blast heel injury that you get in the military, believe it or not, is actually quite similar to the injury that Katie suffered through the boot in Pyeongchang. So really interesting combination in the innovation space, which has already started showing its rewards. And then the next pillar was all about partnerships, because we know this is a fantastic sport and we know that it's hugely watched on a global stage. So how do we really get out, to these partners and make sure that we can, through digital means largely, get the eyeballs onto what our men and women are doing, and so that we can make them household names, really, because then success rises. And tap into that global audience. And then at the same time, the final pillar was all about, the commercial engagement, and then commercial partnerships. So engagement, engaging the audience, so we can really start creating the eyeballs on, which then becomes very attractive to the commercial partnerships. And we need those commercial partnerships because actually, whilst we are funded through UK Sport, the partnerships come with many benefits, including raising awareness, because they can activate for us, but also clearly from fundraising aspect, getting an income stream in that tends to go on a 4-year cycle is hugely beneficial, because we know this sport is expensive, and the more money we get in, the more we can achieve, which we've seen very quickly in a very quick period of time with GB Snowsports. So just a quick sort of bit of background for you. No priority on any of the pillars, but actually treating the combination of them seems to have worked quite well. So what I'll do now is I'll take you through some of the successes, actually, how have we then converted that into results? Well, here you go. 2019, 2020 season, this has absolutely been our best ever. We've taken this nation beyond doubt to levels that did not expect to go in snow sport. And in this season alone, our athletes have achieved 25 World Cup podiums, over 50 top World Cup finishes, 3 G-Tour medals, 1 Games medal, and 2 Crystal Globe winners. The Crystal Globe piece, I think, is phenomenal for us. It's a first ever. We've had a number of first evers for this nation, which is really exciting. And so obviously with Katie Ormrod coming back, from a catastrophic injury. I mean, you see, I've seen some of the x-rays and seen what she's been through. And it just demonstrates, particularly in this environment with COVID, that type of resilience is phenomenal. And she came back, since coming back from injury, she's had, 6 world-class podiums and been a Crystal Globe winner, which is the first for this nation in snowboarding. And then Thomas Gherkin Schofield, that moguls program was only set up 2 years ago, and it's incredible to see how these, the men and women on that program have just excelled. And it's fantastic again, for our youngsters coming through to see it is absolutely possible. And we had the first ever moguls World Cup medal and 6 top 10s, which was and top 6s and top 10s for them. I was really fortunate to be out and to see them in action in the States. And as I was sitting at the bottom of the podium, and everybody had their GB Snowsport jackets on, looking up the mountain, it was we'd already had James Woods getting his World Championship medal, and we'd had Izzy Atkin had followed with her bronze in slopestyle, and then Charlotte Banks had got a silver in the cross-border snowboarding. And there I was at the bottom of the mogul field with these amazing results going on, watching Michaela Schofield coming down, in top 10 position. And the guy on the microphone, the American, was just like, oh my God, what are you Brits doing? And it was just so exciting, and that really generated a great feel, as you can imagine, in terms of a team spirit. And you had all these different disciplines all together, watching their teammate come down and do extremely well. So very proud of Thomas Gherkin Schofield as well, and what he achieved on that podium. And then cross country, we've had Andrew Young has done really well this season with his top 10 in distance. And of course, James Clunet has shown some really strong performances. Slightly more difficult year from Andrew Musgrave, but again, you know, he's an exceptional talent, and we expect to see him back fighting fit and doing what he can do best. Nordic, Sam and Moneykeeper, I don't know if you saw the Youth Olympic Games, you know, they're stepping up to senior ranks next year, which is really exciting. We got some great coverage with them. And again, what a, you know, how amazing is it to have a female ski jumper in the mix, a youngster who's super talented. And of course, Sam's doing really well as well. And then in Alpine, you know, we've had top 10s at the World Cups, and we've had multiple podiums in the Europa Cup, with, of course, Laurie Taylor achieving a top 30 in Kitzbühel. And Laurie's definitely is getting up there, and he's chasing tails. And then ski cross, Ollie Davis, another really exciting athlete. He's clearly establishing himself now with multiple top 12 finishes and multiple top 3 qualifications. He's definitely going to be one to watch, and we're very excited to see his skill coming out on form. Next slide, please. And then our free ski, well, we think this is kind of our flagship program. You know, with Zoe Atkin, she's our first ever female halfpipe gold in World Cup, which is hugely impressive. And I have to say, actually, we've got this female program, this halfpipe program running over in the States. And it's another really exciting program for our young females coming through. And Izzy Atkin, I mean, again, you know, we know that she's fabulous, and she's won World Cup medals in both slopestyle and big air. Gus Kenworthy, you know, he came across, we had UK Sport were very doubting about his ability and why on earth he'd want to come and compete for GB. And so you can imagine, and they I'll be honest, they weren't going to fund him. And they said no initially for the first year. And how excited were we when he went ahead and he got a gold medal in the halfpipe World Cup. It was fantastic. So clearly we went straight back to UK Sport and put our hands up for the money that we'd asked for in the first place. And then of course Woodsy, you know, really badly injured for the season, but actually he's done phenomenally, again, shown that, you know, really good grit and determination to come back, and he's a fantastic return to fitness. And we've just been watching him. Actually, I've just been sent some clips of him training in New Zealand, which is great. And then Kirsty Muir, wow, I was fortunate enough to sit on the sofa with Kirsty for Breakfast TV to do an interview. What a humble but incredibly talented youngster. So, you know, really impressive. And again, she's just been out in Italy. And I love watching the videos of her. She's just so amazing when she gets out there. And then on the para side, you know, we've got the para alpine team. They're adapting really well, and they're working on competitive pairings. What we've done here is we've kind of shaken it up a little bit, so that we can have a look at the guiding. We've created a guiding pool, and we're looking at how can we use talent that sits within our FIS system. So on the alpine side, how can we start to look at that talent and see how we can cross-fertilize and use the talent, you know, as guides, because it's actually really good development on both sides, and that's been fascinating and working well. And then on the para snowboard side, Owen Pick won a bank slalom Crystal Globe, he was the other Crystal Globe, which was great, because when I first took over this, part of the reason I was keen to merge with the para side as well is because Owen had become quite disenfranchised and wanted to leave the program in its entirety, and we managed to convince him that we were doing the merger, and actually he'd be in safe hands and we'd look at his needs, and he's got a great coach in James Sweet, and he seems to have just brought the best out of him and our other para snowboarder at JBM. And then para Nordic, this has been, you know, continual improvement, but unfortunately their milestone event was cancelled, which was disappointing. But we've had some exciting development on the innovation side with para Nordic, working really closely with one of the F1 teams on a sit ski. And it looks brilliant. So we're going to see how well that works out for them as we move forward. Brilliant, thank you. Next slide, please. And so, you know, I mentioned before in terms of the pillars, you know, one of the key pillars for me and for the team is actually the team culture, and ensuring that we are, we're very small as a team. So, time is precious, and getting around the team and making sure that you're giving, the sense of love to everybody sometimes gets hard because you stretch. But the reality is we want to create that team feel. We want to be somewhere that people want to represent, and we can inspire the nation that way. And so team culture has been critical, and I'm really pleased to say that actually we've had 2 incredibly positive culture health checks from UK Sport. You never know what people are going to say because you can't always be out there on the ground, but they've been incredibly positive and a complete turnaround from what they were just over 2 years ago. So that's great actually, and a good benchmark for UK Sport to prove that they're investing in the right space. And I don't know if Trafford told you, but when I went in there, I went into UK Sport. We had a bit of a tough one. I was going to say this at the end, but I'll explain it now. We just before lockdown kicked in, we saw all of our donation funding, our co-funding donation funding, which equated to about 2.2 million a year, disappear down the drain, would you believe? So that was pretty scary. And I had a number of conversations with Trafford about this. So how do we keep the team motivated? How do we keep them engaged? And how do we ensure that we don't hit them financially during this tricky period of time? So we were able to keep all of our staff on full pay during COVID. But one thing I knew that I had to do was create the case to go into UK Sport and demonstrate all those amazing results that I just shown you, demonstrate how actually we had over succeeded and over excelled against the medal targets they'd set us. And the reality was that when I compared it to summer sports, here we were being funded at we were sort of operating in the top 3 of UK Sports, and we were being funded in the bottom 3. So with a bit of analysis, I was able to prove that. And I was also able to go in and bat for, with Dan and Pat Sharples, to bat for what we should be receiving. Now, we were really successful in increasing our funding. It didn't quite make up the gap that we had with the co-funding, but the reality was it gave us a stable footing to be able to take us to the next, to get us to the next Olympics. And what we've definitely seen through sort of going back through that door and constantly pushing the look at summer sports, because if we were a summer sport with the results we've had, we're looking at about 18 to 24 million. So it's quite difficult to justify why we were only getting 7. So we've, and obviously I'd been in the year before because we were only getting 5, and we've managed to push it up that bar. But we've now seen an increased ambition by UK Sport now they seem to start believing us in terms of our direction of travel. And I think we've created sufficient credibility through the results that we've had and through the program strategy that we've created. So they've given us this increased funding, which is huge for a mid-cycle lift. And I don't think any other sports have seen this to this degree. And then we've also had a complete. Originally, they were dropping the they were keeping this ring fencing and making you only spend on certain disciplines, which made it really tricky and a bit divisive. So through that drop in ring fencing, it's enabled us to invest in talent where it is, regardless of the discipline. And also, we've had a big increase in APAs and world-class program membership to 29 athletes, which is a rise of 100% in just a 3.5-year period, which is, again, a real sort of advancement. Look, we've got a long way to go, but it's a really good start in a couple of years for what we've actually achieved as a team. Thank you. Next slide, please. So, what are the key areas that have happened in the last sort of 12 months? COVID and lockdown, as we all know, and you've all experienced, but it's been tough for everybody. But it's been a massive team effort, keeping people motivated, keeping people on side, getting our athletes. Our mission was to say, right, no matter what happens during this lockdown period, our athletes have to come out of this stronger and more agile than ever before, because we can't just let them stagnate. So we spent the entire time, when we went into lockdown, we spent the entire time we had a bit of prior knowledge, which was great, that we were heading that way. So we effectively pulled everybody out of, the phone calls I was getting at ridiculous times of the night from parents complaining and from athletes kicking back, because I was about to pull them out of a really important race. But we had some prior knowledge. We were really fortunate that we had a good understanding that things were going to lock down, and we wanted to get our athletes out there out of the countries before it actually happened. And so whilst they were quite cross on that Wednesday, they were pretty happy by the time Friday came, and we had them safe and home, and everybody else was struggling to get flights, etc. So we're really pleased with the way the team operated, but also we spent that time, the 48 hours straight getting our hands on every single piece of kit we possibly could to get to the athletes' homes to help them actually maintain their fitness levels, because we knew they weren't going to access the gyms. So, and I have to say, our COVID protocols are working extremely well. The fact that we've got our athletes out on the mountains training as we speak is pretty, is pretty impressive compared to the sad situation that other sports are finding themselves in. Another piece that, we're really proud of the work that went into our Olympic qualification selection. It was a huge piece of work for us, and it clearly reflects our increased ambition at the forthcoming Winter Games. And then staffing, we've spent the first 2.5 years really building this world-class coaching team across the disciplines. And we've also, the relevance and the importance of sports science and medicine is hugely important to us. So we've really focused in on that as well. And we've got some serious experts there. And we're continuing to fill our coaching and wax techs roles. We've also added into the mix, of the physio, our 2 nutritionists, our physiologists, strength and conditioning, as well as continuing to invest in our R&I and find our marginal gains in wax technology, in particular for our cross-country and our ski cross teams. Next slide, please. So looking ahead, it's tricky, I'll be honest. As I've said, we've got our athletes out there training. Whether they've got competitions to compete in is another matter, because the calendar keeps changing. So trying to keep track of that is definitely a logistical nightmare. But as I said, coming from the Air Force, it's just important to just be agile and be able to maneuver and be cutting edge all the time. So that's flexibility. Is really key for us, and agility, and we've become very good at dealing with change and producing a plan B, and just keeping ahead of the drag curve. From the military spiel, it's always know your enemy, and keep 1 foot ahead. So we've been trying to do our best in this space, as has everybody. And then of course, we mentioned right at the very beginning, so about the pathway. Development space continues to be a challenge, but working alongside the home nations in particular, I have to say Scotland are right there, and seeing the way that Trafford operates, because his mental, the way he looks at things is so similar. And we're still investing in Europa Cup and development programmes, extended this year with the cross countries Project Lilyhammer, which we're delighted to do. And we're also currently finalising our 10-year medal strategy to just ensure that we are able to continue past 2026 to 2030 and beyond. What I can say is the other piece that I've been working on is a project called Be the Pipe Dream and Find Your Balance, which is using skateboarding to get some of the kids from inner city schools into snowboarding. And we've got that as a pilot study that's going to be starting in Westminster, and I've got that pretty much set up. So, and then we want to move it up to Scotland. We want to move it around to look at how we can increase the inclusivity and the diversity of our pathway and our pipeline. But the reality is, money, funding, and resource is the biggest challenge that I know that both Trafford and I face. And if I can keep pushing as I am with raising awareness as to what we can do, what this nation is capable of, how we've got these fantastic, talented kids out there, and capability is not the issue, it's giving access that's the issue. And we need to really drive that forward. I spent probably 2.5 hours yesterday speaking to the BBC about being able to really to get onto their iPlayer, to get onto their screens, to do a documentary about how we can achieve this as a nation, what our vision is and how we're going to get there. And the more we can create the awareness, and the more that we can get our fantastic, talented athletes on to become household names, then the more lucrative this sport will become in terms of giving access to a much wider remit of talented kids to come through the pathway. And that there's a lot to be done. I know that we're not perfect. We can't please everyone. What we've tried to do is ensure a very lean ship within GB Snowsport in terms of support staff. And so we're here to help, and we're definitely here to work with Scotland in particular, and the other home nations clearly. But Scotland's just slightly ahead, I have to say, well, quite a bit ahead at the moment in the way it's operating. And we will continue to help fund where we can with the development programs. That's pretty much me, and thank you for listening.
Wonderful. Vicky, thank you so much for, I guess, your open, honest presentation that you've put forward. And I think you should be proud. There's a number of things that have happened over the last couple of years, particularly with UK sport, with APAs going up, amongst other things. So it's a good story to tell and a good listen. There's a question that's just jumped into the chat. Could I just encourage others, if they've got questions, to put them there, and we'll run through these over the next wee while. The question, Vicky, is with COVID starting to bite again in Europe, teams and individuals at national level are seeing reduced training opportunities and many under 18s starting to be mentally affected. How are GB Snowsports working with home nations to ensure that potential for the pathways are identified and given a fair crack of the whip and selection onto pathways?
Well, we are obviously through the Europa Cup programme. The problem that we have with the way that we're funded is that we are literally funded for the top tier of the pyramid. It's not right by any stretch of the imagination, and a lot of sports aren't funded that way. So we're trying, this is where it's really important to be working with the home nations and understanding who the talent is that's coming through. We are funding, as I said, we are helping to fund the Europa Cup programs to give these kids a chance and to enable them to come through. But it's not enough, I admit that. And if we had more money, and I'm not making excuses, then we would certainly be pushing more to ensure, because it's almost like we've got the head, which is the elite element, and that's the bit that UK Sport Fund. And then we've got the body, which is the participation element, and that's kind of funded and taken care of in the grassroots by Sport England. And then we've got the neck, and the neck is the really key bit, and nobody puts the money into that bit. So then we have to rely on families, and we are doing it, but we use our co-funding to do that. We can't use UK Sport funding to do that because it's ring fenced. So the quicker, the way that the funding structure happens, the better. Because it will free us up to do more in this space, and the more finance we have, the more we can do. In terms of the mental health and the struggling piece, it's really difficult, particularly when you're trying to manage expectation. With regards to athletes that fall under the GB Snowsport banner, then we obviously have our own safeguarding officer. We have our lifestyle advisor, which who gets out there. But we also ultimately it comes down to those that fall outside of our umbrella and sort of fall in that gap. It's ensuring that they are picked up and that they are taken care of and signposted to the right mental health. We don't give mental health support. We go through the normal routes, actually, where we direct people to the GP and through the charities. Mind is particularly good. I know it very well through my experience of mental health, PTSD, not for me, but for the people that I've helped in the past. So, it's a very difficult situation. COVID is not helping. And unfortunately, the government restrictions, are such that it's having an impact.
Okay, thank you, Vicky. The other question that's popped through here is, how would you say you are progressing against your ambition for the UK to be a top 5 snow sports nation? And what can we in Scotland do to help you achieve that?
I think, well, from the results you've seen, I think we're doing pretty well. It's really exciting, to be honest. I always say, if you want to get somewhere, you have to set your targets high. You have to reach, you have to reach up and really set an ambition that, well, it's got to be, it has got to be achievable, and it is achievable if we create the strength and depth. And I think Scotland's doing a great job already. I mean, look at some of the talent that we've got. But it's finding that talent and seeing how we can work together and open, let's ensure that we're giving them the nutritional advice, the strength and conditioning advice, what exercises are our athletes doing that would help bring them on? How can we pass that down to make sure that you're also embracing the training regimes at the right age group, so, clearly, so you don't damage the athletes. But I think some of this is where we could do better. We could do better, and then obviously you reaching up and us reaching down, then hopefully we should align. But providing us with more talent, and in order to provide us with more talent, it's ensuring that you've got the right programs running, so that we can find that talent and we give the opportunity, to the kids to actually be able to perform to the best of their ability. And then we have to spot them. We're doing a strategy day actually on the 4th of December, which Trafford is at. And a big chunk of that program is about how do we progress the talent? How do we find the talent? How do we nurture the talent? And how do we progress them through so that we're giving them the right support to be able to reach, the heights that they deserve to reach, really. So it's working as closely as we can and giving these kids the opportunity to actually take part in this sport. I mean, it's a cluttered space anyway, isn't it? So they're competing with so many other sports that are easy to do, like football or what have you. So how do we ensure that we're making it attractive, and how do we give you the support you also need to, inspire these kids by giving you access to the athletes that we have, so they can come in and, as I say, so that these kids can see it and realize they can be it too.
Great, thank you, Vicky. And there's one other question I can see on the chat line now. So if we're looking to develop the younger talent coming through, why do we make the criteria so hard when we will have spare spots for the younger athletes to use to gain experience at World Champs?
Say that again, sorry, Trafford, I didn't quite catch that.
If we're looking to develop the younger talent coming through, why do we make the criteria so hard? When will we have spare spots for the younger athletes to use to gain experience at World Champs?
To be honest, I'd have to take that one away, Trafford, and look
Sure.
at the spots piece and understand the allocation of the spots to really to figure that out. So if you can share that one with me via email, then I'll come back on that one.
Okay, and another question's come through. You described GB Snowsport as an umbrella. Park and Pipe has demonstrated great success at the past 2 Winter Games. How do you manage this umbrella to service not just the Park and Pipe, but the needs of all the individual disciplines and indeed learn from them?
What was the last bit? How do we use the umbrella to service all the disciplines and
indeed learn from them?
Oh, and that's what we're striving to do. Is to break down the barriers so that actually, all of the disciplines are given the fair opportunity. You just have to look at the Moguls program, to be fair. I mean, that's not a funded program, that's being paid for via benefaction. And these athletes have, the suits that they wear, we had to stitch in the office, quite literally, so that they could have the knee pads on them. We are really trying to give all of the disciplines the fair chance and the fair opportunity. And again, it comes down to funding. Whilst we've dropped the ring fencing for the different disciplines, what you'll find is when you go under and have a look at how UK Sport fund us, they specifically fund us per athlete. So medal contenders. So what we need to do is use co-funding, which is why the commercial funding is so important, but it's so tricky having had Brexit followed by COVID, is find the funding so we can invest in these programs like cross-border snowboarding, so we can invest in like Project Lilyhammer, so that we can invest in the Moguls program. We're clearly trying to do what we can with the funding that we get, but we do need to invest more in to give greater opportunity and present a fair playing field for all the different disciplines. But the umbrella piece is to really, everything that we do, we see it as one team, and it's really important that we do from the brand, from our culture. As I said, the different personalities is fine, but more and more you see how actually these athletes really come together. I mean, James Woods, I speak to Katie Ormrod quite a lot, and then you've obviously got, the cross country guys are fantastic. So we do try really hard to actually, but it takes time though, right? So, you know, it's been quite siloed for a long time. So now the effort it's been 2 years, and we're trying really hard to give that fair treatment and to make people feel really embraced, and each sport have a fair voice at the table.
Wonderful. Vicky, we will move into our AGM because we're almost there in terms of 6:45. But again, thank you so very much for making the time to be with us tonight. And from everyone, wish GBS all the very best, particularly as we build up to Beijing.
My pleasure. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Robbie, can I please pass on to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, everybody. I can't see, just checking if everything is working okay. Can people hear me? Can you hear me? Am I there or thereabouts?
Yep, Robbie. Yep.
Great, thank you. It's one of the challenges we're all facing at the moment is learning to communicate in different ways. Look, thanks everybody for taking the time to join us this evening. Thank you to Vicky. Obviously, I'm not sure if Vicky's staying with us, but in any case, thanks Vicky for taking the time to spend a bit of time with us this evening. It's great to hear. It's really important, as you say. We and Trafford in particular have spent a lot of time working with you and your team and colleagues at GB Snowsports over the last couple of years. To build that relationship. It is nice of you to say that you think we're doing a good job. From an athlete development perspective, it's so important that we get that right, and our relationship is close so that we can develop our athletes and hand them over to a certain extent into the GB teams and squads, and hopefully through to Team GB and World Championships teams as well. So I know that it's great to also see a number of your GB Snowsports colleagues on the call as well. So welcome to them. I'll probably give another minute or so just to. We did say we would start the AGM at 6:45, so I will wait for whatever that is, another 30 seconds or so, just to make sure that we are all good. And if people want to stick on their cameras, they can. It's lovely to know that people are listening. There's not very many people that have. I can just see lots of names, many of which are very familiar. Neil's done the good thing and put his camera on as a board member. Thank you. Who else have we got? Yeah, so you can see a few people there. Thank you. Okay, TikTok. We'll just let that roll over. Okay, that's 6:45. I've had a nice note from Niamh to say that with the numbers that we have registered to join us this evening on the call and the proxies that we've had received through over the course of the last few days, I'm happy to confirm that the meeting is a quorum. So on that basis, I will formally open the 2020 AGM in line with Snowsport Scotland's Articles of Association. As I said, thank you all for joining us this evening. In particular, I'd like to welcome, obviously, fellow Snowsport Scotland board members. I think we've got Frank Musgrave on, Kenneth Munro, Antonia Lee Bapty, Robin Hutchison and Neil Farish. I think Wayne Glass-Davis is also on, and I think Ewan Anderson is on. So the majority of the board are on. In addition to Vicky and her team, I'd like to also welcome Megan Griffiths, who is our partnership manager at Sports Scotland. I always do that at Sports Scotland. Obviously, Sports Scotland are major funder and supporter of Snowsport Scotland. So again, thank you, Megan, for joining us. Megan sits as an observer on our board, so feels like she is a permanent member of the team. In terms of formalities, obviously, as ever with an AGM, number of formalities to go through. So you've received the AGM documents. Thank you to Trafford and the team for preparing those. So hopefully that has been useful, as we did last year, to send those that one single document out in advance. So you've seen the items for discussion and approval adoption this evening. First on the agenda is the 2019 AGM minutes, which have been circulated. First of all, can I ask through the chat box if there are any matters arising from the 2019 AGM minutes? I'll maybe give 5 or 10 seconds for anything to come up in the chat box. It doesn't.
Nothing.
Nope.
Good.
Okay. On that basis, can I ask that the AGM minutes are approved? Somebody like to propose that again? I think by the chat box, Trafford. Is that right?
I can do it verbally.
Perfect, Frank. Thank you very much. And seconded, please.
I'm happy to second, Robbie.
Antonia, thank you very much. On that basis, 2019 AGM minutes are approved. Okay, a little bit less formalities. Maybe just take, Trafford and I are going to spend a little while just to talk a little bit through the where we're at over the course of the last 12 months and obviously plans going forward. Before Trafford brings it to life a little bit more, I think obviously as chair of the board, it's really important that we touch on a few things, and I'll be right up front first with COVID. COVID has been obviously, as it has been for all of you, it's been front and center for our board and management team over the past 6 months, and will undoubtedly impact the way we work and focus our resources for many months to come, and certainly through this next year. Kenneth will talk in detail about the measures that we've taken in place, put in place financially to reduce our fixed costs. However, I guess as chair, look, it's important for me to reassure you all as members and our stakeholders that Snowsport Scotland's in a stable financial position to be able to respond to the challenges that we're seeing with COVID. I think our last board meeting face-to-face, which was in March, obviously things were starting to turn at that point. And since then, we've spent a lot of time looking at our financial position and taking a prudent and I guess could say a pessimistic approach to our financial management, because it's really important that we as a governing body and as an organisation are able to sail through this the current situation and ensure that we are in a stable position coming out the other side. So in terms of our reserves, they're in line with our normal practice, so 3 months of operating expenses. And our current 2021 budget, as I say, sets, I guess, a pessimistic view across all our income areas. And that's on the basis that I know, again, I've said the word pessimistic 3 times now, but we need to perhaps prepare for the fact that income into the organisation will not be where we would like it to be over the course of the winter. I think if you'd asked us this 3 to 6 months ago, we would have all hoped that we would be through this by the winter and ready to, perhaps as a winter governing body in a winter sport, we'd be able to capitalise on that. But it's looking increasingly challenging. So we have budgeted for the worst, and that process has allowed us to ensure that we are in a stable position and a good financial position coming out of the winter. Part of that is with confirmation of our Sport Scotland funding, so £347,000, which is unchanged in support for this year. And Sport Scotland took the decision for all, governing bodies that they would provide that support effectively in advance at the beginning of the year. So we've already received our funding for this year. So we know, again, we can make the decision based on having that funding in place already. So again, I've mentioned as well, Megan already. Thanks, Megan, for your support and Sport Scotland's support for making it as easy as possible for us and other Scottish governing bodies to move through the current times. And I guess as Snowsports Scotland, we've worked tirelessly over the past 6 months to support the reactivation of snow sport, and it's great to be able to see club sessions having been able to start taking place, and seeing athletes, whether here or at training camps abroad. Some of those have been able to take place over the course of the summer and into the autumn. So fingers crossed that continues, and we don't get any more restrictions that stop that taking place. As one of our key pillars and objectives is to be an effective organisation, and I and the board take our governance and our management, our process is really important. And while again sometimes that can seem a bit dull and a bit boring, but it is really important that you as our members are confident and have confidence in us as an organisation to be running things well. So we got, I guess, external validation of that early in the year when Sports Scotland commissioned KPMG to undertake an audit on our processes and our governance. And that was a really positive response, came out and confirmed that Snowsports Scotland is an effective organisation, it's well managed, and we've got the appropriate structures, systems and policies in place. And that's obviously is in turn important for Sports Scotland to be able to know that they are, in the funding that they provide to us, it's in good hands and is being managed well. So again, thanks to the board, the staff, and others who've been involved in that audit process to make sure it does demonstrate what I think we already knew. We're a well-run organisation and we're in good hands. Along the similar lines, we undertook checks and balances over the course of this year to make sure that we meet Sports Scotland equality and safeguarding requirements. I know, again, you will all agree, as a governing body, it's critical that we keep our people, and particularly our young people, safe and secure in line with our strategy, values, etc. And we want to ensure that barriers to entry for young people and from people across all race, colour, etc. are able to enter our sport, and keeping those barriers to entry as low as possible. So meeting those Sports Scotland requirements is positive, but it really does mark just the beginning in these areas, and we look forward to working with clubs and facilities to make sure that our commitments in these areas are developed and followed by the wider snow sports community. Finally, you will have also noticed that over the course of the last year, we undertook a really thorough facilities consultation process. And back in July, if you haven't read it already, I encourage you to do so. It's a good old read, though. We released our National Facilities Strategy through to 2030. And I guess what this did is it confirmed what we and many of you on this call already know. Snow sports plays a huge role in getting people active in Scotland. And each year our snow sports facility network attracts nearly 750,000 visitors. And the mountain resorts particularly make a significant contribution to rural economies, tourism, etc. And this strategy really sets out our ambitions and aspirations to develop and support the development of our national facilities going forward. It is ambitious, but we're also realistic within that report about what can be achieved over the short, medium and long term. And we've just established a facilities committee to start moving forward against that strategy. And first meeting of that is in a couple of weeks' time. And obviously COVID and the impact of COVID on this winter, it will be one of the main topics for discussion at that first meeting. So that gives you a little highlight of the things that are particularly important to us as a board. Trafford will come in a minute to talk a bit more operational and put a little bit more flesh on the bone. But I guess before I finish my words, I want to acknowledge and pass on my thanks to a few people. As I said, we're fortunate to have a board and members who are really fully engaged. They're all volunteers, they all give up their time freely, they're all unremunerated, and they give up their time, and their commitment is really appreciated, and I hope is demonstrated in the work that we're doing as an organisation. And particularly over the course of the last 6 months, more and more ad hoc meetings and input from across the board. So look, I would like to thank all board members for their support and involvement. But in particular, we have 3 directors that are stepping down over the course of the next month and a half or so, by the end of November. 3 board members who have been on over 2 terms, so they've given up 6 years worth of Monday night board meetings and much more. So look, I'd like to just give mention to all 3 of them. Wayne Glass-Davis, my predecessor as chair, and who gave me huge support and encouragement when I took over from him just under 3 years ago. Kenneth Monroe as finance director, who has made sure that our kept us on the straight and narrow in terms of our financial position, and provided, I know, a lot of support, direct support to Trafford and the team in the office in terms of our financial management. And Neil Farish as well, who, his advice, particularly in our commercial committee over the course of the last 2 to 3 years during my time has been invaluable, as well as wider support. So look, I'd like to thank those 3 members on behalf of the board, and I'm sure on behalf of all of you as well. I've mentioned Sport Scotland enough, but thanks again to Sport Scotland for their funding and support. But I guess lastly, and absolutely no means least, thanks to the Snowsports Scotland team. Trafford and the team have, as ever, built on and developed and supported the work that we're doing across Snowsports. Have done a great job over the course of the last year, but particularly how they have reacted and worked so hard to adapt to COVID over the course of the last 6 months has been fantastic, and almost done more in the last 6 months than we could have really expected. Despite everybody working from home, as many of you are. So look, on behalf of the board, I'd like to thank the team. They've done a great job, and I'm going to hand over now to Trafford.
Thank you very much, Robbie. Look, the 2019-20 season, it feels like it was a very long time ago. However, looking back, we're pretty happy and proud of what was achieved and the progress that we're making towards our 2022 strategic objectives. Consistent with our approach taken last year to formally report against our strategy outcomes, hopefully on screen now you'll see our 2019-20 season scorecard. Just to talk that through, the blue numbers reflect our actual 2019-20 season outcomes, and the red, amber, green rag arrows indicate our performance in terms of improvement. Green remained unchanged, amber, or gone backwards, red. Green is good, and I'm pleased to say that in most cases we're on track to achieve our sought after strategy targets. For the sake of time, I don't want to go through all the outcomes. You can see them for yourselves on screen now, but I do want to spend a bit of time talking about the red areas, so our coaching numbers and our stakeholder survey results. As some of you may be aware, Snowsports Scotland transferred to a new database system last year, and a data cleansing exercise was part of this process. Double counting in other areas have been removed, and as a result, our coaching membership numbers have slightly dropped. So in this case, red shows that we have got better at counting rather than losing members. On the back of the new UK awards, the expanded Snowsports Scotland Training Centre model and new courseware, we're hopeful that our coaching membership numbers do rise this season in line with our strategy targets. Neve, could I get you to jump to the next slide, please? In regards to our stakeholder survey, as shown on screen now, we had a decent response to the survey that was canvassed in March, with 135 responses coming in, and that was represented by a mix of club members, individual members, and also non-members. We tried to push the survey out as far as we could. The areas that demonstrated year-on-year progress include our communication efforts, our efforts to support athletes, and lastly, our efforts to support coaches, leaders, and instructors. Whilst it's probably not obvious in the results that you can see on the screen now, what we're particularly pleased about this year is our number of stakeholders that said that our performance was rated as very good or excellent has increased by 15%. So we've seen a shift at the top end. However, Our survey also highlighted areas that we need to focus on a bit more. Neve, if I could ask you to push on again, please. These areas include supporting and enhancing our facilities network, providing better and more support to club administrators, and attracting more participants, particularly youth, towards our sport. We take the feedback that we pick up through the survey very seriously, and despite the pressures of COVID, have looked to improve all three areas where you've told us we need to do better throughout our 2021 season. Neve, could I ask you to click on again, please? Thank you. So COVID has absolutely changed the way that we work. The last 6 months have involved Snowsports Scotland working closely with Sports Scotland, Scottish Government and other industry partners to provide guidelines, resources and online training to assist clubs, coaches, facilities in response to COVID. Following the release of our facilities strategy in May, which Robbie mentioned earlier, we now have an active committee that is working with facilities to better understand the impact of COVID and to hopefully lobby for increased support. Snowsports is a big sport in Scotland and we don't want to see any of our facilities close because we know that that will have a significant damage in terms of people engaging in our sport. In the absence of running events and programs or coaching athletes, our teams delivered a number of successful initiatives. One of those, of course, is the summit with over 550 people attending the 6 sessions that we've run over the last few weeks. And my team absolutely deserving a drink at the end of tonight. Travel restrictions have been obviously in place, and that's forced us, I believe, in a good way to hold more training domestically and in partnership with club coaches, and we've seen some real gains in that work. And there's been some really strong support provided through the Scottish Institute of Sport to make sure that athletes remotely are receiving training and support as best as we possibly can. As we look ahead, we're hopeful that COVID restrictions will allow us to run events again, programs, courses, and hopefully get more people coming through and involved in snow sports. Equally, we're keen to support our athletes to train and to compete abroad when we're able to do that. In partnership with GBS, camps have been delivered since lockdown began, and we're hopeful that these opportunities remain open with the winter season not too far away. So in closing, from my end, I'd just like to thank the Snowsports Scotland board. I absolutely echo Robbie's earlier comments. We're fortunate that we have a committed board, a capable board who are happy to give up their time. I'd like to commend my team. I'm lucky that I've got a fantastic team to work with who I believe have embraced COVID, particularly over the last few months, very well. And lastly, and most importantly, thank you to the people on this call, the clubs and facilities, for your collective support throughout the season gone and obviously over the last 6 months as well. To finish with, absolutely we're facing some challenging times at the moment. However, I'm confident and committed in ensuring that we make the most of a good crisis. So hopefully we can get out of this, we can enjoy the winter season soon and get back to what we all enjoy. So with that all said, that's the wrap-up report from myself and Robbie. We'll open up for questions shortly, but before we do that, I'll just ask if Kenneth could come in and talk through our financial situation for this year and our budget for the year ahead.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. The year to March 2020 coincided almost entirely out with the COVID situation. So for the year to March 2020, we had an overall deficit of £1,000 compared to a deficit of 32,000 for the year to 31st March 2019. We had some small rises in income, principally from the running of more overseas performance camps and from greater investment from GB Snowsport. Costs are up as a result of a full complement of staff for the full year. And so that takes care of 2020. In terms of our 2020-21 budget, by the time we set the budget, we were well aware of the impact of COVID. In response to this, we've taken advantage of as much support that's been available from the government. We have ceased any leases in respect of the premises and vehicles, and discontinued any part-time posts. That should be sufficient to result in a break-even situation. We'd also budgeted on receiving 60% of our affiliation income from members and competitors. However, that has transpired just in the last few weeks to be a little bit of a pessimistic view, and it looks currently we're over 80% of affiliation income as we sit today has been received. Looking forward to the next 6 months, we still have around 25k of events and activities which are subject to budget risk. But however, there are other areas of expenditure which we can reduce if absolutely nothing happens whatsoever. And that is a brief summary of the accounts.
Kenneth, thanks very much. So as Trafford said, obviously we've had a chance to hear from myself and Trafford and Kenneth. Really an opportunity to ask any questions, whether in the chat box or if, like Frank, you want to shout out. I'm very happy to answer any questions. Thing is, I know you're not a shy lot.
Hi there. Can I just not really ask a question, but just make a comment, just to say a huge thanks to Trafford and the team this year, especially with the situation we've been in since March. I feel that Snowsports Scotland have been very proactive in trying to put things in place for all the clubs and be very supportive to all the clubs going through this experience together. They've been there for everybody whenever we've needed them. We've pulled meetings together to chat, and I think there should be well, I'd like to say a huge thank you. I think the support's been incredible actually from Snowsports Scotland. So thank you very much from Glasgow Ski Centre. We're very impressed with the support we've had, and hopefully we'll continue.
Julie, thanks very much. I know that's one for Trafford and the team to take away, but your support is much appreciated. As I said earlier on, I know the guys have worked hard, not just this year but over previous years, to build strong relationships and you know, transparent and open, trusting relationships with clubs. And sometimes those are easy conversations, and sometimes they're more challenging. But you know, I know one of the approach that Trafford takes and adopts with all the team is to be front and centre and visible. And I think that, you know, for us has been really important over the last few years, is to increase the visibility of Snowsports Scotland and to be clear to you as members and clubs and athletes and coaches and volunteers what it is we do. That we're not just here as an invisible governing body. We're here actually to help drive forward the sport and work with you all who are really at the cutting edge and ground zero to help you deliver that, because that's what you guys are doing on a daily basis. Well, thanks for your support.
Well, there's definitely been a shift in what's been delivered, and it's quite noticeable, certainly from my perspective. So yeah, well done to Trafford and all the full-time staff for everything they've done so far throughout this period. Cheers.
Great, thank you, Julie. Mo, I'm just reading your comments. Arbroath Ski Club, agree with the comments made. Facility sessions have been incredibly helpful, and this is in addition to Ian's support around slope calculations has enabled our facilities to open week commencing 10th of November. Thank you in caps. Thanks, Mo. Okay, look, we've got a few other bits and pieces that we'll carry through. That's not to stop anybody else adding in any comments or questions, but I'll keep things moving forward through the formalities of this evening. So the next thing I would just like to do, obviously, the audited accounts were sent out as part of the papers. So if we can move for those to be approved and adopted. So if somebody can propose that, please.
I'll propose.
Thank you, Kenneth. Seconded.
I can.
Neil, thank you very much. So 2019 audited accounts approved and adopted. And then secondly, for request that Rob Ferguson be reappointed as Snowsports Scotland's auditors. Again, if I can ask for that to be proposed.
I'll propose.
Thank you very much. And seconded.
I can do that, Robbie. Mark Ritchie.
Great, thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate that. Okay, we're a little bit behind time, so we'll move on quickly to board appointments. So as I mentioned, we have 3 directors that are coming to the end of their terms, and over the course of the last 2 to 3 months, we have been gone through a pretty extensive recruitment process to bring in new directors to fill those positions. So we received a really strong number of applications. Again, we take that with great pride that people want to be part of the Snowsports Scotland board. And for the 4 roles advertised, we had a number of interviews, etc. So just want to quickly, there are some slight differences, as you may remember from previous AGMs, as to how different directors are appointed. So the first one I want to pick up on is our finance director. And after recruitment process, the board, which was all done virtually, as you might imagine, the board unanimously agreed that Tim Winter should be appointed as independent finance director, and he will take up that post when Kenneth steps down over the course of the next month. But maybe I would like ask Tim. Tim and the other nominated directors have put forward short statements, but I'll maybe ask Tim if he put him on the spot, just to say a few words and introduce himself.
Well, thank you very much indeed, and I'm very much looking forward to it. We've heard it's all very challenging times at the moment, and from a finance side, incredibly challenging. I bring about 30 years experience working in finance across mainly the private sector, but I've worked with charitable areas as well. I was treasurer of the Eagle Ski Club for 3 years. And my passion is ski touring, downhill skiing. Tried to start to take up cross-country skiing at the moment as well. But I've also enjoyed living in Scotland for the last 17 years or so, and seeing my children go through some of the Bearsden dry slope. They joined Glencoe Ski Club, so I've had some affiliation with some of the stuff that Snowsports Scotland does as well. So very much looking forward to it. But I did also want to say a big thank you to Kenneth as well. He's left it in very good state, so I'm hoping to carry that on going forward. So thank you.
Tim, thank you very much. So as I mentioned, independent finance director is a board appointment, and the board have agreed to appoint Tim. The next 3 positions following our articles are elected positions, and after going through, as I say, recruitment process for 2 general directors and a park and pipe director, the board is recommending that Paul Stark, Maggie Laurie and Scott McMorris as Park and Pipe Director are elected to the board. And what that means is you as our members are asked to vote unanimously, by majority, sorry, for those positions. So again, you've received in the papers a bit of a biog of each. What I'm going to do now is ask Paul, Maggie and Scott in that order to just do as Tim's done, just introduce themselves quickly and say a little bit about themselves and the reasons why they've applied to be on the board of Snowsports Scotland. Once they have each completed, we'll go through hopefully a reasonably quick process of voting for their election. So hopefully that makes sense, and Niamh will keep us right on the voting in a few minutes, but if I can ask Paul first to introduce himself. If he's there.
Okay, well, certainly I'm just looking for the mute button. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's great. Thanks, Paul.
Good stuff, good stuff. Well, firstly, thank you to everyone, and thanks to the nominations committee for putting me forward for consideration this evening. For those I have not yet had the opportunity to meet or who haven't had time to read the blurb I submitted, nice to meet you. My name's Paul, as Robbie said, and I stay in Livingston and West Lothian with my young family. I submitted an application for the role as a General Director due to my background and passion for snow sports and also my 20 years experience in the sport, education and outdoor education sectors. My day job is Head of Business Operations for another Scottish governing body of sport, Scottish Cycling, where I oversee the governance, IT, HR, events, communications and safeguarding functions of the organisation. I've also previously served as the Head of Service for Sport within a local authority, giving me a sound knowledge of the landscape across grassroots sport, sport development and sports facilities. My passion for snow sports lies in ensuring opportunities for participation for all, and importantly that a pathway from participation to performance exists for everyone, irrespective of background. As my children are now of an age to start venturing into the mountains, I'd like to be able to play an active role, not just at the development of opportunities at a local level, but would also like to offer my knowledge and experience to support the Snow Sports Scotland Board achieve our strategic objectives. Thank you all for your consideration, and I look forward to meeting you on the slopes this winter. Robbie.
Thank you very much, Paul. That's great. Thank you. I'll ask Maggie Laurie to say a few words.
Hi there. Thank you again for this, for the opportunity to be part of the Snow Sports Scotland Board. I'm keen to share some of the knowledge and skills I've learned over the years with Snow Sports Scotland. I'm passionate about getting more people more active. I'm passionate about getting more people, developing people through sport and using sport as a vehicle for achieving goals and success. My career's given me a broad range of experience, from project and events management to sports development, a bit of time working within sport, performance sport and business management, as well as PR and communications. Passionate about snow sports. I've been involved either on a personal, professional or a voluntary basis for 29 years now. I've got experience across most of the disciplines that make up the snow sports industry. And I also have got experience right from the grassroots level of our sport through my involvement with Arbo Ski Club, but also working as a ski instructor for almost 19 years now. But right the way through to the top end of our sport, working with Olympians and other athletes that are competing on the international stage. Some of my proudest achievements have come as a result of my involvement with snow sports. And it's an industry that has given me so much, whether it's been enjoyment, personally, a career, skills and friendships. And I really want to kind of try and help the industry and the people within it be the best they can be.
Maggie, thank you very much. Excellent, thank you. If I can, and last but no means least, Scott McMorris, who is our recommended Park and Pipe Director.
Hi Robbie, thanks for the introduction. Firstly guys, really nice to meet you. I'm Scott McMorris from Edinburgh. Grew up snowboarding from a very, very young age with some fellow friends, including a good friend, good pal Hamish McKnight, who's the head of GB Snowboard Park and Pipe coach. We spent a lot of time snowboarding up at Hill End and developing the local scene there, which has been great. My main motivation for applying for the Park and Pipe Director role was really the opportunity to share my personal experience as a professional snow sports athlete that I was for approximately 10 years. I feel I've got a great insight and understanding of what it takes to compete at an international level. Through this experience, I can offer a huge amount of advice and support to the wider snow sports team on the board, as being a candidate who spent a lot of time in that particular discipline. Retired from professional sport in 2010 and joined my long-term eyewear and apparel sponsor, Oakley. And although my role has kind of evolved over the years, I oversee and manage the sports marketing and brand communications team for North Europe, and that entails events, partnerships across the region. I manage a sports eyewear partnership with a company called Ski Star, who've got 6 ski resorts in the Nordics between Norway and Sweden. Also look after approximately 50 athletes across all different sports, from snowboarding, skiing, Nordic ski, cycling, golf and motorsport. So I think it gives me a great kind of encompassing knowledge and understanding of the sports, and really looking forward to getting stuck in with Snowsport Scotland and being the Park and Pipe director.
Super. Thanks very much, Scott. Thanks all three. Okay.
Thanks,
so we're going to move on to the elections. So I'll ask maybe Niamh to keep us right on process here. I think there'll be a pop-up that will come up, and we'll vote each individually. We'll start with Paul, and we'll wait for the results to come in. It's a little bit like Eurovision, and as soon as we get there, the quicker you vote, the quicker we get the results, the quicker we can move on. So the first vote has popped up in your screen now. Please vote just once, and obviously you need to be an individual member or representing a club to vote. So obviously if you're not eligible to vote, please don't vote. But those that are eligible to vote, please vote now. And Niamh will tell me at which point we have hopefully a majority decision. So that's for Paul.
Just waiting on the last few to come in, Robbie.
Thank you very much. I think Niamh has to do a little bit of totting up, because obviously those that are voting on behalf of clubs have a number, a voting strength, depending on the size of the club. So Niamh is doing her calculations on the hoof. Where you need sort of some background music in the background just to keep things moving along. Paul, you don't look too nervous.
In the poll there. So that's the live poll from the votes from people on the call, plus we've got 9 proxy votes as well, which were 4, and then what I'll do is I will do the calculations for club representatives, and they'll be represented in the minutes as well, just so I don't take up too much time doing my slow calculations.
That's great. Okay, Niamh, thank you very much. How do they put it? I can't remember. I'm thinking of the Tour de France classification, provisional classification. It looks like that's pretty significant support for Paul, but obviously Niamh will need to do the checks afterwards. But I'm pretty clear that looks like a majority vote for Paul. Okay, super. Thank you very much, Niamh. If we can move on to Maggie, please. So, again, if everybody can click as quickly as possible. Should have had stories up my sleeve here for COVID stories, but I don't.
Last few coming in, I think.
Must be the system slow in compiling. I can't believe somebody's waited a minute to decide who they're voting on, or maybe they're just checking and being absolutely sure.
Yep. Okay, it's going to end it there. So same thing. Yep, 34 on the call, and then we've got the 9 proxy votes for as well. But same sort of thing. I will calculate with the club representatives as well, and represent the exact voting numbers in the minutes.
Great, thank you very much. And again, Maggie, provisionally, I'm sure the numbers have all gone the right way. So Maggie being elected as General Director. And last but by no means least, Scott as Park and Pipe Director.
Last few coming in. Okay. Perfect. And the same thing, 31 for, 9 proxy for, and the same sort of thing. I will calculate the club representative votes.
Great. Thank you very much. And again, thank you, Scott. So look, thank you everybody for taking the time to do that. It is part of the process. As a reminder, it is, when we updated the Articles of Association back end of 2017, this was put in place to ensure that you as our members have the opportunity to ensure you've got visibility and a say over those that are appointed to the board of Snowsport Scotland, and that's the process we've just gone through. We want to make sure that you've got that visibility and you're comfortable that we're well run, well managed, and got people with the appropriate skills and expertise. And the applications from Maggie, Paul, and Scott, I'm sure demonstrate that. Okay, look, that brings us to the end of the formalities for this evening. They are necessary. I won't say evil, but they are necessary. Niamh, thank you very much. As ever, you've had great experience over the course of the last 6 weeks or so of running the summit sessions, and as slick as ever, and Ian as well. Thank you very much for both of you and your technical support over the summit sessions. So with that, because there are no other further questions, I'm going to bring the formalities of the AGM to a close and hand over to Trafford to cover our award presentations for this evening.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Robbie, and again, thanks to Ian Nick particularly for all the work that goes on behind the scenes to make this happen. Niamh, can I get you to jump to the next slide, please? Right, we've got 3 awards to provide tonight. So we've gone out and asked for winners, for nominations, not for winners, of these 3 categories. And tonight I'm going to announce the winners. So we're going to begin with the Coach of the Year. Can I please ask you to announce on the screen who that is, please, Niamh?
Drum roll, please.
Alex Standen, wonderful. And I've got a bit of a story on Alex Standen. And Alex, you're going to be expected to talk, so you can think about what you're going to say shortly. Cross-country skiing has been extremely fortunate that Alex moved into coaching. He has worked through the ranks to now coach at a high level and become one of the only 3 Snowsport Scotland tutors. Alex has transformed the performance coaching of Scottish cross-country athletes in recent years to a level not seen before. Last season's Project Lillehammer was an inspired new project which allowed under-23 athletes to spend a whole winter racing and training in Norway with their own coach. This was a phenomenal boost to these young athletes' progression. Alex's incredible vision and dedication to the sport and his creative coaching sessions, which are thoroughly enjoyed by all athletes, even though they're sometimes quite tough. I've seen Alex take on board so many coaching skills in a calm and a constructive manner that is a huge asset to cross-country skiing. He can talk to athletes, parents, administrators, other coaches and other organisations with great experience, knowledge and considered thought. So Alex, congratulations, and can I get you to come on and just say a few words, please, just to make you a bit nervous.
Don't actually know if he's here.
Oh no, right.
I don't
we can't embarrass him, but we will fine him for not being here. So there we are. Congratulations, Alex. Well done. Can I then move on, please, Niamh? What's our next award?
Volunteer of the Year.
Volunteer of the Year. And our winner this year is Rick Newman. Rick, I understand you are on the call. I hope you are. So congratulations, and I've got a few things to read out about you. And then if you could talk, that would be wonderful. So Rick has recently retired from chair of BNDS after 6 years, having been vice chair before this and a committee member before that. In that position, he ran the group that drove the whole of the British cross-country ski development process, and so has overseen 2 Olympic Games, the handover of the elite squad to BSS/GB Snowsport, 2 World Championships, 7 World Junior Championships, 2 Youth Olympic Games, and 3 European Youth Olympic Festivals, as well as keeping the cross-country pathway on the move. Since 2006, Rick and his wife and family have organised and run the main fundraiser for the cross-country squad, Ming the Merciless Midsummer Madness. It is renowned for its incredibly friendly approach that allows a large range of abilities to have fun at their particular level. And it's raised $22,000 since the 2006 inception. Rick has probably not given any thought to any of this. It's just what he's done. I think his long-term dedication to the sport should be recognised as an outstanding volunteer. So Rick, many congratulations, and if you're able to come on and say a few words, that will be wonderful.
Well, Trafford, thank you very much. That's most humbling to hear you read those words out. Yeah, if I may say that cross-country skiing is a minority sport in the UK, and I think we've delivered results beyond expectation. And it's been very exciting for me to be part of British Nordic over that time. And it's also really encouraging now to have such strong support from Snowsports Scotland as well. So thank you very much. It's been a privilege for me to work with volunteers within our organisation and with expanding cohort of coaches as well, and of course with the athletes right up and down the pathway in age group. So it's been a really enriching experience for me over all these years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and congratulations again.
Thanks.
Right, and our last award for this evening, Neve, could I get you to drop that up? And it's our Athlete Performance of the Year. And the winner is Kirsty Muir. Kirsty, I understand you're also on this call, which is brilliant. So I'm just going to read out some stuff in terms of what you've achieved, which you should be very proud of. And then I've actually got a couple of questions for you, if that's okay. So Kirsty winning silver medal in ski big air at the Youth Olympics in January 2020, only narrowly missing out on gold. And she also came fourth in slope style at the age of 15. Kirsty is the first British athlete to win a medal in this event, only individual medal at Games. Kirsty embraces a whole youth Olympic experience and its values and love meeting competitors from countries and other disciplines. She was chosen to be the flag bearer in the closing ceremony. Kirsty hopes her performance will encourage others to try skiing and other snow sports. Encourage them to learn to ski at their local dry slope in Aberdeen, and she still trains there today. So Kirsty, amazing year, and many congratulations. I understand you're over at Stelvio at the moment. So to begin with, has it been a decent camp? And I know you're with the coaches, so this might be awkward.
Yeah, it's a really nice camp. Just a shame a bit about the weather, but we're hoping for some better weather in the next few days.
Good, good. And obviously it's been a very successful season for you. Can you talk us through some of the highlights from your perspective?
Well, the Youth Olympics, in January this year was such a fun event, and it was nice to see some other sports and lots of other countries. And also another highlight would be winning the Europa Cup Big Air in Davos.
Awesome. And talk us through your plans for the coming season, coming winter.
Well, this season I'm just trying to train more and travel around the World Cup circuit this year.
Perfect. And lastly, what do you think of the new dry slope at Helene, new park and pipe area?
Oh, it was really nice. Yeah, it was great to try a new place, and it was really great.
I was lucky enough to be up there with my my 2 young boys, and they told me that girls could ski, and girls skiing was cool. So there we are, you've inspired them. So thanks so much for coming on, Kirsty, and congratulations. We continue to be very proud of you, and we'll be watching your achievements absolutely in the years to come.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Right, there is the very end of our night. I'd just like to thank you all for, again, your time this evening. And yeah, fingers crossed for lots of snow and toes, and we hope to see you out there soon. Thank you and good evening. Cheers.
Thanks, Darford. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening and a great winter, hopefully. Fingers crossed.